It's very true that we're here to talk about excerpts and hopefully coming out today having shared consensus that we do need a better blueprint for how to promote virtual learning and blended learning to classrooms throughout the state. We also know that the climate for virtual learning and blended learning is tremendous, especially when you think about critical theory and NJSCERA that require critical thinking, that require analysis, that require application, that require teamwork.
How are policymakers responding to blended learning, online learning opportunities, and what concerns are you seeing?
Well, I think in general it's both trepidation and excitement. I think trepidation because they realize that when they take a look at their education codes, they look and realize so much of this is designed for the traditional brick and mortar classroom. So how do you fit these new models into that? How do you deal with the accountability, regulatory frameworks, funding, attendance, etc.? And those are some real challenges. I think when you take a look at some of the ways in which digital learning has really launched, I think primarily through the charter school movement. Charter school law allows expansive opportunities for innovation, more latitude for administrators and schools to be able to do different things, innovative things, which is a positive. But I think in addition to some of the traditional concerns that even parents have, what about, for instance, in virtual learning, what about socialization? What about in a blended school? Are they going to be stuck in front of a computer all day? Are teachers really even interacting? If we're delivering a course online, is it really a high level in the same way that a teacher would be delivering a course face to face? So I think that's some of the same concerns that frankly a lot of parents have as well too. What's interesting though, I mean, there's aha moments that a lot of policymakers will have, and there's two stories that I want to share. One is former Congressman Rob Andrews. He is a proponent, and he became a proponent not because he himself sort of awakened to it, because his daughter did. She herself was a very smart and driven young lady, and felt held back in a traditional school, and explored the opportunity to go to an online private school. And that experience, and he will tell you, he walked in with some trepidation, opened his eyes to the world of digital learning and how it can personalize learning and allow his child, who is an accelerated learner, to move at a faster pace. And then they just got talking and said, where do you go to school? And she says, well, my son goes to this online school. And he says, really, what's the name of it? Tells the name. He says, my school district actually sponsors that. With that, she stopped, got up, began to cry, and hugged him. And that moment right there was just wow. For her, she said there was just no other option that would work for my son. No other public school option available. So thank you so much for giving me that option. And I think that for him, again, was a transformative moment. I think of more and more policymakers. Educators are clearly driving this, but policymakers are having that aha moment about what the potential is for digital learning. Even with the charter school law, you'll see folks who'll say, well, the charter school law does not allow for online or blended learning or full-time online learning to take place. Courts have had various different opinions. In New Jersey, the court came down clearly on the side of enabling the commissioner the broad authority to offer online learning for purposes of driving innovation. Those are all welcome advancements, obviously, but
I also have to say what a laggard this state is in online learning compared to much of the rest of the country. And a lot of the reason is because of the teacher pushback to which Bruce refers, because oftentimes the teachers' unions in particular don't want these kinds of innovations. They either fear what you're describing, or they outright oppose online charters, which might not be unionized. And I think to that extent, that's part of the reason why we're so far behind. If you look across the country, Florida virtual is far ahead. Florida is leading the country in terms of online education.
And let me make this perfectly clear. We are not against, the NJEA is not against virtual or blended learning. But unfortunately, in this state, there are no laws for protection. The school was already formed. What we challenged was their right to, in fact, be called a blended learning or virtual learning school, because the law did not provide for it.
I have the decision right here, so I'll go from it, which it gave the commissioner broad authority to grant charters to schools using a variety of educational methodology. We find no merit in NJEA's argument that the absence of an express reference to online teaching in the Act and its legislative history suggests the legislator would not permit that form of teaching. It goes on to say, certainly the legislature did not intend to exclude advances in technology from charter school classrooms. It did just the opposite.
So I think one of the components, and that's a great question, is people wonder, what does blended look like? What does blended learning look like? And what are some of those misconceptions? So one of the components is blended learning operates very much so in terms of school days, in terms of the 8 to 3:30 time frame where students are actively engaged and working with teachers and working online as well. So one of the key components is the teacher-student ratio. So in terms of a classroom size, a student is in a classroom with 1-to-1, 15-to-1 in terms of the ratio. And students' instruction is more individualized because during those smaller group settings when students are working with the teacher has the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper in terms of what are some of the things that students are struggling with, or what are some of the things that students are naturally excelling in, that gives them a greater opportunity to be more targeted in terms of instruction. Students also have the opportunity to work online. So the online teacher is the same teacher that they see every day, face-to-face, that's providing them with the direct instruction. So they have someone directly even on site in terms of the blended learning model that is able to support them, that's in the building with them 5 days a week as part of a full school day. One of the other components with regards to the blended learning is students do have the opportunity to go at their own pace in terms of if a student is excelling in a particular area, whereas if you're in a larger, more traditional setting, you're going with the pace of the class. So if you have 30 students in the class and 15 students are really excelling in a particular area or 15 students are not, you are going with the teacher pace. And the teacher has more restrictions in terms of how to differentiate, which is the struggle that many classroom teachers in any setting struggle with. So the differentiation opportunities are greater in a blended model. So if a student is in this core setting and they are ready to move forward, they have a greater opportunity to do so. But there's also a greater opportunity if they're really struggling with mastery of a particular concept, to be able to have individualized time to sit back and say, this is where I'm seeing deficiencies, this is how my teacher can best support me, these are the additional components that I can receive as online support to help me through. So there is just a greater opportunity in terms of differentiation in a blended school model. Our student body population that we are blessed to serve is that many of the students have chose to leave a more traditional public school for a variety of reasons. And one of the components is that they were essentially looking for more. If we talking with some of our families, looking for something different that they feel is going to help them make a greater connection with who they are as a learner, who they are as a person, and growing and developing and looking at post-secondary opportunities that maybe they weren't seeing ahead of time, or they weren't seeing at the school that they were at prior. So for a variety of reasons, people are leaving. But I think one of the components that's really helping and supporting some of our populations in blended learning is that differentiation piece. So
early ages as well. There's an investment online program underway for them at 20 years old and most are less than 65 years old. Technical studies that certainly would personal success like that. I know the United States Department of Education just a couple of years ago reported a story on blended learning as well. So, the students who participate in the blended learning environment actually work out to some extent to about children position and theory studies. Recently, 2 weeks ago, the Michigan Assessment System had a Michigan University and promoted person promoted courses like algebra, and mentor students on both there to find those students actually bring the experience to you and all of that. And so I further understand the balance that people in the American body basically